European elections have just shown, immigration is an agonising issue. UK novelist Zadie Smith writes in her award-winning modern immigration narrative White Teeth, it was a competition in agony, like rich women in posh restaurants ordering ever smaller salads. So it is with the truth and the immigration debate. Populist politicians reducing the facts to agonisingly small portions. Read the headlines across Europe, especially in the more Eurosceptic nations, and immigrants might seem like the source of all Europe's problems. But what is the reality? What lies behind the political rhetoric? Facts or fiction?
We come here to protest against the government, the Rwandan government, because there are many things which go wrong there and even outside the country, because I think that you have heard of the assassinations of opponents outside the country, and we come here to let the world know about that. We are involuntary migrants. We didn't come here on our will. It is because there was a problem in our country and everybody ran to different corners.
When it comes to asylum makes big headlines very quickly, but the number of asylum requests actually granted is minuscule, it's really tiny. Why does asylum get such a huge headline?
There are two reasons. One is that it is an increasing trend because of the civil unrest in Syria, because of worsening conditions in Africa. So in 2013, 435,000 asylum requests have been filed in the European Union. If you consider the overall European Union, 500 million inhabitants, that's not such a huge number.
Migration Watch UK reported that between 2004 and 2011, youth unemployment rose by around 450,000, and at the same time 600,000 Eastern European workers entered the UK. Jonathan Portes, director of the National Institute of Economic and Social Research, disagreed with Migration Watch. Portes said the vast majority of that rise in youth unemployment took place during the recession caused by the financial crisis, and that during that period the number of Eastern European workers actually fell.
You also have to consider that we have seen a shift in migratory trends and asylum trends. While all the Mediterranean routes, which are the one more exposed also to tragedies, unfortunately, before were more composed by economic migrants, in the last couple of years, they're almost every time made by people fleeing civil conflict or persecution. This means that the most vulnerable people, who are asylum seekers, refugees, have as an only possibility to ask for asylum, to try and cross the Mediterranean and get to Europe this way. The trend to build up like a strong defense against migration is partially linked to the economic and financial crisis, because when people have it very difficult to make their day, to gain their life, to earn their life, it is extremely complicated to explain them or to tell them that other people can come and can have the same opportunities and can contribute to the growth of their country side by side, because they will tend to see it as kind of competitors on the job market, on the social benefits, all these kind of things. Now, of course, this requires a lot of effort from national politicians in order to stick to facts and try not to support the demagogic or xenophobic arguments. Media attention, but also public attention, is very much focused on these tragedies, and this also makes it that the debate about asylum sometimes it's a bit more based on emotions than on facts and figures.
The effects of immigration on wages is very small. Between 1997 and 2005, a 1% increase in migration to the working age population resulted in a very small increase in average wages. And from 2000 to 2007, similar migration led to a 0.3% fall in average wages. But there are wage variations when it comes to different working age groups. The Oxford-based Migration Observatory found that the greatest wage effects are found for low-wage workers. Each 1% increase in the share of migrants in the UK-born working-age population leads to a 0.6% decline in the wages of the 5% lowest-paid workers, and to an increase in the wages of higher-paid workers. So, if you are better paid today with migration, you'll be better paid tomorrow. But if you're at the bottom of the scale, the bottom 5% of wage earners, you'll be worse off, which means that the left and the right are campaigning on the wrong side of the tracks. The left, defender of low-wage workers, is usually supportive of broader immigration, but the centre-right, a staunch advocate of all things middle class, tends to oppose deeper immigration. If the left was really supporting its core demographic, it would oppose immigration because it forces wages down. And if the centre-right really looked at the figures, they would see immigration favouring the middle class. When it comes to social benefits, the fiction factory is in full production mode. 371,000 migrants claimed benefits in the UK in 2011, which is only 7% of the total migrant workforce compared to a claimant rate of 17% for all British nationals. Migrants represent about 13% of all workers, but only 7% of out-of-work claimants. So if governments started thinking more like businesses, migrants are a better investment and a more efficient resource than the indigenous population.
People being regularly in the EU, migrants working in the EU, they tend to be net taxpayers, and they tend to create a surplus for social budgets. So it is not true that they do exploit without paying, on the contrary.
A UK Home Office report in 2002 estimated that for the 1999 to 2000 financial year, migrants made a net fiscal contribution of about €3 billion. Basically, they paid more in taxes than they used in benefits and state services. In fact, the average immigrant cost the UK £74, compared to a net cost of £892 per UK-born person. When it comes to non-European economic and student migrants, they impose costs on UK public services that are small, both relative to the total cost of these services and to the share of these groups in the population as a whole. This is partly because of the age profile of the migrants. They tend to be younger and healthier as a proportion of the population. And there's a huge gap between people's perception of immigration as a national issue and an issue which affects their own lives. Polling organisation YouGov reports that immigration comes second behind the economy in terms of national importance. But when people are asked to comment on issues which affect them directly, immigration as an important issue drops from 45% to just 12%. Portis argues that at a macro level, European migration is beneficial and migrant citizens make a positive financial contribution to their host country. And a new OECD study adds to this view, stating that migration within the EU helps to balance out the European labour market by reducing unemployment in the countries of origin and filling vacancies in destination countries. I am an immigrant. Technically, I'm an expat. Immigrants are people who move from the south to the north for work. Expats are people who move south to work. Europe has its own quietly racist language for migrants. The tracks we follow are not always a matter of choice. Choice is the conflict of circumstance. We tend to follow the track of least resistance, hoping that as we walk, we will rise a little and our circumstance will improve. As Zadie Smith writes in White Teeth, the other thing about immigrants, Fujis, emigres, travellers, is they cannot escape their history any more than you yourself can lose your shadow. The embassy here, is it supportive of your protest?
No, of course, because it is a protest against the government and they represent the government. So we come here, but there is a police here between us, and we are here, and they are there. No one goes from one camp to another.
I should address it to in particular?
Please.
Sure, no problem. Thank you.
We are here in Belgium, but we would like that our country be better so that we can go back. There's no better place than home. So if we can go back home and get there in peace without being put in prison for what we said before, or for what we said here, what we are saying here, I think that it is recorded that they can say that this day you said this, so you have to go in prison. If we can go peacefully and return to our country, that will be the better way to help us.